Please welcome former Mayor of City and County of San Francisco, Willie L. Brown, Jr.
Let me welcome each and every one of you to the City Hall of the City and County of San Francisco on behalf of Mayor Edwin Lee. In just a few minutes, you will hear from him. We're here to celebrate the life of an incredible human being. There will be a series of persons telling you from their own personal perspective about this extraordinary human being. But we will commence the program the way Nelson Mandela would have wanted us to commence this program. And that is, of course, by celebrating his life through the voice and sound of people who can sing, very young people who can sing. In this case, the Pacific Boys Choir Academy of all places, Oakland, California. But then Nelson Mandela was about, this is my daughter Susan's, one of her many charitable activities that she does. This is one of them. And so if you will just kindly stand, and the boys' course will give you both the national anthem of South Africa and the national anthem of the good old USA.
Thank you.
marvelous rendition of our national anthem, but an incredibly impressive rendition of the South African national anthem. Can you imagine those young persons 2 or 3 days a week with every song and every opportunity for good music, and then being told by Mayor Ed Lee about 48 hours ago what they next had to do? And they started rehearsing, and they rehearsed, and they put it together. And please, another round of applause for that collection of that. For the occasion, the man who presides over City Hall and all of San Francisco, Mayor Willie L.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. Welcome, everyone, to the People's Palace at City Hall, San Francisco. Today, we mourn the loss of a great world leader who inspired the world and forever changed the hearts and minds of millions. The outpouring that we have already felt and the unprecedented tributes we have already seen show us the love that the world has had for Nelson Mandela. Former South African President Mandela left a legacy of struggle and freedom. He fought against injustice and oppression to build a free South Africa that set off a global movement. His values are San Francisco values. And even though they took so much from him, he had courage and forgave the very people who put him in prison for more than 27 years in a racially divided South Africa. He left his heart open, and he changed the world. Nelson Mandela freed a nation. He led with grace and compassion. He challenged us to do better. And his resolve to promote human rights, peace, and democracy has inspired generations, including myself. San Francisco is part of the global movement he created. He fought for equality and for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people, and he enshrined those rights into the South African Constitution. He was a transformative leader in the fight to end the HIV and AIDS epidemic, and he definitely cared for people living with HIV and AIDS. He fought to end poverty, to empower communities, and brought his nation together. Nelson Mandela touched so many so deeply. He brought hope, and we saw in him what we seek in ourselves. His life has been an inspiration to all who are changing the world for the better, and his legacy has had the profound impact on our city and our residents. San Francisco mourns as we have lost a friend and truly inspirational leader who never stopped fighting for equality and helped to empower communities everywhere. Our heartfelt thoughts and prayers are with the entire Mandela family, the citizens of South Africa, and our friends around the world. It has been said that his passing was a mighty loss of a mighty life. We will continue to honor Nelson Mandela's legacy to help empower communities everywhere. We must never stop fighting for equality for all. His legacy lives on in each of us. Thank you, Nelson Mandela. Our world has changed forever because of you. Let us all stand together now and in the days ahead and follow in Nelson Mandela's footsteps, take action for what is right, and inspire that kind of change every day in our lives here in San Francisco, a city for the 100% a city with a world-class heart. Thank you.
When Mayor Lee caused us in San Francisco to pause for the occasion of Mr. Mandela's death, he was joined and is joined this morning by many of his fellow elected officials in San Francisco. And I thought I simply might identify them. They're not speaking, so don't worry about it. It's only 2 hours, not enough time. Public Defender Jeff Adachi is present with us. President of the Board of Supervisors, David Chu, with his fellow members, David Campos, London Breed, Malia Cohen, Mark Farrell, Scott Wiener. Also present is, from the state of California, Senator Leland Yee. Present also is Sheriff Ross Macarini, statewide elected official, and their various school board members, and I'll identify them in just a few minutes, as well as our police chief, Greg Sir, and our fire chief, of course, Joanne Hayes-White, the person who succeeded Ed Lee as the Chief Administrative Officer, Naomi Kelly. And so you'll see the official family of San Francisco has posted for the occasion of the celebration of Nelson Mandela's life. Many people did not know Mandela personally, but symbolically, and it's, I think, appropriate merely, the NAACP nationally has caused everybody to pause, as was the occasion in the ceremony in South Africa just 2 days ago, when our president and 3 other ex-presidents all showed up for that celebratory service. The NAACP in the state of California is doing likewise. And to give you the perspective on the life of Nelson Mandela from the standpoint of the people who literally has been a part of every step that he's taken to rid this world of inequality and discrimination, the head of the NAACP for the West Coast, Ms. Alice Huffman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to Mayor of this great city, and to our senators and secretaries and other dignitaries present, to all of the friends and people who came out this morning. I am so pleased that I got this call at 4 o'clock yesterday from Speaker Brown to show up in San Francisco at 8 o'clock from Sacramento. And only Willie Brown can make you do something like that, get up at 4 o'clock. But you know, I am really honored to be here because this is a great occasion. And I do bring you greetings from the National NAACP, where I serve as a board member and the Criminal Justice Chair, and from the state of California and Hawaii. But you know, I'm sure that many of you did what I did. We watched. We stayed awake and tried to watch that ceremony when it started in the middle of the night. And I know millions of people were just absolutely enthused to see all of the commendations that they were given to Nelson Mandela. But I must tell you, I felt like, even though I watched it, I did my little thing with TV, and I put my press statement out, I felt like something was missing in California. And so when Willie Brown called, I was anxious to come over because I believe this is the piece that we need to do in California. Now, I'm old enough now that I can consider myself a historian. And I remember when Mr. Willie Brown And Miss Maxine Waters, that feisty woman that he had for a cohort, started trying to get legislation through on divestment. And the first time they put the bill up, it was a joke even in our community. What is wrong with those crazy people? The next year they put it up, Senator, it wasn't so funny. The next time they put it up, they finally got the divestment bill passed. And that was the beginning. The greatest pension funds in America pulled out their investments in Africa, and that was the beginning of the unfolding of the underpinning of the economic viability of South Africa. And the movement began in California. So it's only fitting to do this commemoration here in California, because I say that we were able to do that in California because Willie Brown and Maxine Waters were veterans of discrimination, and they knew what it would take to finally get the world to listen, and they had the courage to do it. So I give them accolades as well as Mr. Nelson Mandela today. California NAACP expresses deep condolences. We all feel the loss of a great leader like Mr. Mandela. You know, when he began his movement with the ANC, we felt like it was a model that the NAACP had set forth. And the NAACP was right there arm in arm with him in trying to end the discrimination. Now, his life that he strived for liberation of African nations challenged the dignity of the African people and endeavored to advance all African countries and move forward Africa's cooperation with the world. Fundamentally, he was an optimist. He kept his head pointed to the sun and his feet moving forward. He never gave in to despair during his many dark days. We consider President Mandela the founding father of South Africa's democratic nation. He created a South Africa founded on a sound civil and human rights principles for all. He was constant in his call for one person, one vote for all of the people everywhere, regardless of race, creed, color, or sexual orientation. He felt the one vote was the most empowering thing that they could do on a short order, to turn equality over to all the people who lived in South Africa. He was a legendary leader, a moral leader, an inspiration leader to many people still fighting the causes today. I heard President Obama, if you stayed up late and you listened to him, I heard him say in his speech that he gave President Mandela credit because at a young age, he got caught in the movement in South Africa and it molded him, and he gave him credit that he's where he is today because of the inspiration that he received from President Mandela. The chairwoman of the NAACP, Roz Brock, said, "The Honorable Nelson Mandela embodies the hopes, dreams, and aspirations and values of all who seek justice against tremendous odds." First Lady Michelle Obama said, "We will never forget the strength and inspiration from Nelson Mandela, extraordinary example of moral courage, kindness, and humility." Ms. Secretary Clinton said, "Nelson Mandela was a champion for justice and human dignity with unmatched grace." Nancy Pelosi said, "With the passing of Nelson Mandela, the world has lost a leader who advanced the cause of equality and human rights." I agree with them all, but I will add my point too. I think that Nelson Mandela taught people how liberating it is to forgive. For had he not, the anger of blacks over the brutality they had experienced during apartheid and the guilt and the fear that white people had about what they had done would have caused a civil war, not a civil rights, a civil war in South Africa. President Nelson Mandela's gift to the world was his ability to forgive. He pointed us to the best part of our human spirit. When President Mandela appeared in Oakland at the Coliseum, he praised California for the progressive role and leadership it had given through its divestment efforts. We created an environment that began to weaken the economic stability of South Africa. Nelson Mandela, a man of courage that we all revered, who thought, many miles away though, was such an enormous figure in our lives that we will not forget him. We will remember that he taught us and loved us. He is the stuff that legends are made from. May we embrace his spirit of conciliatory forgiveness and bring peace to this world we live in. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
For some of you, you may recall, the first opportunity Black South Africans had to vote, they voted Nelson Mandela in as the first Black president of South Africa. All over the world, wherever there were South Africans of any color, they were urged to cast a vote. This City Hall was the voting booth for the first election in South Africa that led to Nelson Mandela's being made its president. And so one of the proud references that we have in this place is, yes, voters from South Africa helped elect Nelson Mandela. Now, some of you will instantly say, well, you know, people in San Francisco vote enthusiastically anyway. Maybe some of those people were not South Africans. Who knows? Following Nelson Mandela's election as his president of South Africa, he then dispatched all over the country, our country, consul generals to represent South Africa. And on the occasion when we celebrate the life of Nelson Mandela, the Consul General of South Africa has journeyed to San Francisco to participate. Mr. Consul General, Cecil Andress.
Thank you so much, Program Director, former Mayor Brown, the current Mayor of San Francisco, a.m.The. Thank you so much for having extended an invitation for me on behalf of South Africa to participate in this, both the commemoration and the celebration and the honoring of the late President Nelson Mandela. Former Mayor Brown, I couldn't agree with you more when you said in your opening remarks that Nelson Mandela would have loved to hear the young people who can sing. And I wish to extend my appreciation to those angelic voices here. Madiba really loved young people, and they sang the national anthem of South Africa so well in the way in which Madiba wanted. You will forgive me for impersonating Madiba. I love to do that. When he visited these shores in 1990, soon after his release, there is an anti-apartheid activist who hailed from South Africa, Segi Govender. He had assembled a choir called Vugani Magwetu, and they sang the national anthem of South Africa. Us, as black people, we had our own national anthem, Nkosi Sikelel' Africa. And then Madiba, because he wanted South Africa to reconcile as a nation, he pleaded for the inclusion of the national anthem of white minority regime anthem, the Stem van Zuid-Afrika. So this choir, Vuyani Mawetu, sang as the Nkosi Sikelel' Africa and ended there. At the end of the event at the Coliseum, Nelson Mandela said to Segi, "I heard you singing the national anthem, but you didn't sing it right." As I was moving from the hotel room where I've been staying overnight and coming this way, I saw another poster, University of San Francisco, with the words, "Change the world from here." I immediately thought that with your contributions, the anti-apartheid movement was very strong from here. And by so doing, you changed our own world in South Africa. It was from this area that the anti-apartheid became very strong, and with the divestment, you name it, that forced, you agitated for the release, not only of the former president, the late Nelson Mandela, but for all the political prisoners in South Africa. And from there, South Africa, which you helped to liberate, then we had this man, Nelson Mandela, whose life changed the world. I remember, Mayor Lee, you issued a proclamation in on July 18, recognizing the Nelson Mandela Day, July 18, on behalf of the citizens of this great and people-friendly and welcoming city of San Francisco. I happened to have traveled to South Africa. That proclamation, I handed it over personally to the office of the Secretary General of the ruling party, the African National Congress, Mr. Gwede Mantashe, with a request that it be relayed to Mrs. Graça Machel. And I can assure you, because Nelson Mandela, though he could not speak in his last days, but he could see, he could read, and he knows that the city of San Francisco honored him by recognizing the Nelson Mandela International Day, recognizing his 67 years of contribution and of community service to the people. And Nelson Mandela was a man who could make things, unimaginable things happen. I was just watching the proceedings, early yesterday of the official memorial service. 91 heads of state and government descended on South Africa, on South African soil. And I can tell you one other unimaginable thing, I will not delve onto it. That civil handshake between the two presidents who represents opposing views. That on its own would have made Madiba to smile. It's often said that God always sends angels in any person's lifetime to walk and to work in our midst. And I think that Nelson Mandela was one of those angels. The Almighty God blessed us with so many angels in the previous century. Amongst them, other than Nelson Mandela, that would be the late Dr. Martin Luther King, Mahatma Gandhi, and Mother Teresa. There is still hope. There is still hope that in the 21st century, we will also have some other angels that would have a great impact in the lives, particularly of the poor people and the dispossessed people. And with those words, let me just say that the people and the government of South Africa that I represent on the West Coast, we feel deeply honored and also humbled by the outpouring of so much honor for our late president. Nelson Mandela, his personal assistant Ms. Zelda Legrand made a comment on Thursday on hearing that our great Madiba has passed on. She said, "Heroes never die." And it made me to remember that Nelson Mandela, at some point, he would touch on metaphysical issues. He was once interviewed by one journalist who asked him about life hereafter, and he said, "Oh, well, yes, I do believe in that." And then he said, "I can tell you that when my maker calls me, the first thing that I will do would be to go and look for the nearest branch of the African National Congress." I can safely say that Madiba is still alive. He's not dead. In closing, let me share with you, because Nelson Mandela had a great sense of humor. And in what was his last trip, at that time I was stationed in London as Deputy High Commissioner of South Africa. So from time to time, he also loved London, much as he also loved San Francisco, the Bay Area, and Los Angeles, which is the reason why 6 months after his release from prison, he came back to thank all of you. And so he came from the hotel. We do not know, because it was a secret how and when we would escort Madiba out. We would have used the back door of the Dorchester Hotel. But I can tell you that thousands of people had converged at that back entrance. But on our way to the lifts, at that time he was walking with difficulty. So I was on his right, and a member of the Secret Service was on his left. So he had his arms around us, and then all of a sudden he stopped. He had noted another man, I would say must have been 62, 63 years old. And then we stopped, and then he asked, because he loved to ask people who they were. And he said, "Yes, what is your name?" Then the man responded. He said, "What are you doing here?" And this man said, "No, I'm working, I'm a janitor here." And then he said, "You know what? When you go into retirement, you must send a word to me so that I can come back and take your job." So you can just imagine a 90-year-old, he was 90 years at that time, you can just imagine a 90-year-old replacing, a younger person at 62. And thank you so much.
If any of you ever heard Nelson Mandela, you sounded just like Nelson Mandela. I was frightened. Notice the great portrait of Nelson Mandela behind me at the top of the staircase. I will be lobbying soon to replace that. With a more current photograph. San Francisco is indeed blessed, and has been for many, many years. And invariably, somebody comes along and enhances that blessing even more. The only person who's ever been 4 times a cabinet member, closest thing we will ever have to a president is the Chief of Protocol's secretary. Charlotte is the Chief of Protocol. George Shultz is her secretary. So on her stairs, on this rotunda, Charlotte will present to you her husband and secretary, George Shultz.
Thank you, Charlotte, for that brilliant introduction. We're here to mourn and celebrate the life of Nelson Mandela. So I have on a dark suit and a bright tie to symbolize those sentiments. What do we make of his life? On reflection and thinking about it, he was a man of action. He fought against apartheid unflinchingly, continuously, effectively. And as his effects grew, his African National Congress became more and more effective. I'm sure that he realized inevitably he might wind up being put in jail, and he was, for 27 years. But rather than have his jail time put him away, it seemed to do exactly the opposite. As it's said all over the world, free Nelson Mandela. That was all over the world. Finally, he succeeded. And he came out of jail still on the moral high ground. So he didn't come out bitter and vindictive. He came out saying, let us reconcile, let us solve problems. It was so dramatic and so, in a way, unexpected. But it was so Mandela to stay on the moral high ground. So as he was fighting, others also thought about the problem and said it's not enough to say things, you have to do things. So what did we do? We thought a lot of the problem was because it was caught up in the dynamics of the Cold War. The Soviets had moved into southern Africa. They had their proxy Cuban troops in Angola. In response, the South Africans, at least they've had this, had troops in their neighbor, Namibia, where apartheid was installed. So we looked at this and scratched our heads, and we said to the South Africans, how come you're in your neighbor, Namibia? Well, Cold War, Cubans. Well, what if we get the Cubans out of Angola? Okay, you'll leave Namibia. Deal. They didn't think it was possible. However, as the Cold War was subsiding, and some brilliant diplomacy by my Assistant Secretary for Africa, Chester Crocker, we made a deal, and the Cubans left. And so we went to the South Africans and said, okay, you're part of the deal, leave. And they did. So in the country next to South Africa, apartheid ended, a marker. Then we thought over very carefully who we should send as our ambassador. And I identified a very able person, a deeply experienced Foreign Service officer. He was the kind of person who had a presence. If he came into a room, people noticed him. He was black. He was a friend. So in the South Africans, if they wanted to deal with the United States, they had to deal with a black man. But not just a black man who was a tremendously able person with stature that you look up to. It was a marker. Then I had a request for a meeting with Oliver Tambo. Oliver Tambo was then the head of the ANC, Nelson Mandela's organization. The ANC was controversial. It had its flirtations with Moscow, some violence. South Africans wouldn't meet with him. Lots of antagonism toward them in the Congress of the United States. The CIA had a good working relationship with the South African intelligence. But I thought I should meet with him because, you know, you begin to feel the cracks. And this is the organization that represents most of the people of South Africa, so we should have a working relationship if we can. I checked it out with President Reagan. He gave me the green light, and I had the meeting. It was a good meeting, went on for an hour or so. We were both candid. I said what are some of our reservations. He said some of his things. Then we talked about the common things. He turned out to be a good guy. We had a good time together. The next day, a whole lot of senators and congressmen called for my resignation. There was huge indignation. I'm sure fanned a little bit by the CIA. I don't know that. President Reagan said, look, it was a good meeting. We had to have it. That shut them off. Anyway, it was a marker. Now, it seems to me we have to say to ourselves, how do we celebrate Nelson Mandela? We celebrate it by what we do. It's doing things, not saying things, doing things. That's his life, what he did. So if he looked around in this country, I could imagine he might say, the moral high ground here is equality of opportunity. That's what we say we believe in, and we do believe in it. But are we doing it? No. We're nowhere near it. Some kids, right through high school, college, they're doing great. Other kids are high school dropouts. That's where inequality of income begins, in the schools. Sometimes you hear people say, well, some kids have an unfortunate background, there's nothing you can do about it. Totally untrue. We have example after example in this country where you project the right kind of environment and these kids come and they do well. They graduate from high school, they look you in the eye and shake your hand, and they go on to college and they do fine. So it's not the kids, it's the system. And we got to fix the system. And I say this only to emphasize Nelson Mandela's vision, his message to us. Get on the moral high ground. Find things that need to be done. Be a doer. Take actions. To me, that is the message of Nelson Mandela on how to live our lives. And Nelson Mandela, I thank you.
And in keeping with Nelson Mandela's call for action, no one better exemplifies that for more than 50 years in the city and county of San Francisco, a man whom Nelson Mandela was really proud of, one of the people he wanted to meet when he was released from prison and came to California, as the Consul General said, to say thank you. One of those persons receiving those things was none other than our own version of Nelson Mandela, a man who had the Glide family, Reverend Cecil Williams.
I left Glide this morning at about 7:15. I went there to see what the line looked like of people who were there for breakfast. Today we will feed close to 3,000 people. And we will always feed people who are on the fringes of society because it is needed. We are going to stay right where the poor may be located. We're going to be there because we feel very strongly that we've been given a call that came 27 years ago, but a call that came and said, look, you better watch out because I'm coming out with a new call. And the new call, of course, came from a man that I call a prophet, Nelson Mandela. He was a prophet because he looked not only to the present, but the future. He was a prophet because he could know, he knew that he was onto something quite marvelous, something quite important, something that was different, something that would stick with people. And mainly that something had to do with poor people, just very poor people. Those not only who were on the fringes of society, but those who were suffering severely. In America, we could take care of that suffering if we really wanted to, but we don't have the mission, it seems to me, to take care of it. We've got to take care of suffering, human suffering. The priority that we have at Glide is first and foremost the poor. That's just it. Everybody else, it's the poor. We're going to be there. We're going to always be there. And so it is critical that we understand that Mr. Mandela was a prophet. But he was also, and I love this, a liberator. To be a liberator, you have to liberate everybody as well as yourself. And if you don't liberate everybody as well as yourself, you're not a liberator. A liberator, it seems to me, is one who says, I will meet the challenge no matter what the circumstances, and when I do, I'm going to take everybody with me, no matter what the circumstances. So a liberator liberates and frees people. There it is. Liberator frees people. We have freedom today because we have had some liberators in our history and in our present. And that, of course, says to me and to you that we've got an opportunity here. So George is right. You act, you do. We talk too much. And, I go to offices and stacks of paper on people's desks, and I wonder what in the world are they doing with all that paper on that desk, Are you doing anything is the question, it seems to me. Are we doing anything is the question, And sometimes we get so above ourselves that we think that we've got it made. Never do any of us have it made. If we make it together. And that's where I want to lodge my important thing today. We make it together. I'm so glad that I'm in a city called San Francisco, because in this city, things can happen. I mean, it's a city that has a metropolis, a city that has knowing people, all sorts of people. And what we must do is make sure that we continue to have diversity, because that is the keystone to what we do. We must be diverse. We can't just be one kind of people. We've got to be all kinds of people. And so it is critical for us to work together to bring about a kind of response where we will all stand together and we will be able to see and hear some music that would say, watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. There's a call going out. There's a call going out. It started 27 years ago, and the call is still now, 27 years. And now the call is for you and me in the now, present. Whatever we do it to to make sure that we enhance the lives of people and not take from the lives of people. It's now time for us to move, and if we got anything standing in our way, we have to go and make sure that everybody is included. So radical inclusiveness is very important in my life. You got to include everybody. I don't know whether you know this. I got to get it in before I stop. And that is, Harvey Milk was one of the first persons on the West Coast that started talking about divesting to make sure that people recognize the fact that apartheid was a disease and worked against humanity. Harvey Milk was that person. He came to Glide, and we did some planning at that particular time, talking about divestment. And so I want you to know that you have a hero that you didn't even know you had in Harvey Milk, because he was one who did it. Finally, the reason you don't see Janice beside me, because if she were not ill, she would be right here, standing right beside me. But she sends her love. And I think that's the last thing I want to say, is where has the love gone? You know, we don't love enough. We don't love long enough. We don't love enough to make sure that things count. And we don't have a love that is way beyond some of the things that we inspire people to do. So now it's time to love. It's now or ever. We got to move. We got to do it. And thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Willie Brown, George Shultz, all of you. Just thank you so much for doing this today. It's very important that we continue to say who we are and show who we are. So it's time to show. Don't tell me, show me, show me, show me, show me, show me.
Mayor Ed Lee has provided a condolence book for our signatories. If you so desire, it will be of assistance. I believe that in the lobby, near the security guards, and on your way out later today, you might want to fix your signature. That book will be delivered by the City and County of San Francisco to the heirs of Nelson Mandela, and it'll be a continuation of his relationship with our great city. As part of what Nelson Mandela did all across the nation when he said thank you was to travel into the various communities, faith communities. And one such faith community will now be represented by Rabbi Doug Cohen of the Jewish Community Relations Council.
I am profoundly honored to stand here this morning and to participate and offer a prayer. Yesterday, the opening prayer at the official memorial service for President Nelson Mandela was given by the Chief Rabbi of South Africa, Rabbi Warren Goldstein. It was an opportunity to reach out again to the Jewish community, a community that overwhelmingly and early on vigorously opposed the system and the injustice of apartheid. And so I share with you an excerpt from that opening prayer at yesterday's service. Remember, O God, how Nelson Mandela exemplified the finest qualities of your servant, Joseph, about whose great leadership, generosity of spirit, and power of forgiveness we read in the Hebrew Bible. Joseph was thrown into a pit with snakes and scorpions by his brothers, who were filled with hatred and jealousy towards him, and he was then sold into slavery and exiled from his parents, from his home, for 22 years, many of which, due to a terrible injustice, were spent in jail. Joseph emerged from jail to become a leader and head of government of a mighty nation. And when he was reunited with his brothers, had the opportunity to exact vengeance and justice. And yet Joseph, the righteous, transcended his personal pain and need for retribution by forgiving his brothers so that his family would not be torn apart and destroyed forever. So too, O God, your servant Nelson Mandela, like the biblical Joseph, rose up from jail to become president of a mighty nation. He too transcended his personal pain and years of suffering to forgive and to embrace his brothers and sisters who had inflicted so much pain on him and so many millions of others, in order that a diverse South African family would not be torn apart by hatred and division. Nelson Mandela brought to life the ancient words of Joseph when he said to his brothers, "Fear not, for am I in place of God? Although you intended me harm, God redirected it for good, in order to accomplish, as is clear this day, that a vast people be kept alive. So now fear not, I will sustain you and your young ones." And so he comforted them and spoke to their heart. Nelson Mandela spoke to our hearts. He brought us comfort, and through his mighty power of forgiveness, he sustained us and liberated South Africa from the pit of injustice and prejudice, unleashing the awesome generosity of spirit of millions of people. O God, shelter his soul in the shadow of your wings. O God, who heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds, grant your consolation to the mourners, strengthen and support them in their days of grief and sorrow, and remember them and their families for a long and good life. Wipe away the tears of all South Africans and indeed of all the world. Bless the people of South Africa, a nation of heroes who came together to transcend the pain of the past in order to build a great nation on earth, and inspire our hearts to continue to walk in the path of Nelson Mandela, to continue the work undone for racial and economic justice, and to live up to his majestic legacy. Yehi Shemo Livracha, may the name of Nelson Mandela, a truly righteous man, live on as a blessing. Amen.
At that celebration ceremony in South Africa, the Episcopal Church was also represented. We have a landmark institution, Grace Cathedral, and they presented the first celebration of Mandela's great life. And to share with you some of their thoughts, the Reverend Bishop Mark Andress, Grace Cathedral.
It's sad to say that the normal way of waging war never finally ends anything. There's never been a war that ends all wars. There's never been an armed conflict that settles everything once and for all. That fact leads us to understand that the kind of warfare that was waged by Nelson Mandela was a different kind of warfare. It was a spiritual warfare. 20 years ago, I took a group of my high school students from Alexandria, Virginia, and we traveled to the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. to see an amazing dance by the Howard University dancers. It had been brought from West Africa by the great choreographer, African-American Pearl Primus. And it was a dance that was enacted once every 10 years in this West African tribe, and it was a war dance. It was a war dance against all the spiritual things that had infected their community in the past 10 years. They threw them off by spiritual means, spiritual warfare. Amazingly, 20 years later, this Thanksgiving, at dawn, I went to Yaka'ama, our land owned by Native Americans taken in 1971 at the same time as AIM went to Alcatraz, up near Healdsburg, where a group of Native Americans from 3 tribes gathered with their young people to dance and to chant as they welcomed a new day. In the midst of this, they too danced a war dance. The elders of the community gathered all the young people around them, the young dancers who were in their teens and even preteen, and explained to them what the nature of this war dance was. It was the same as that West African dance. It was to cast off the spiritual violence that infects communities and beats people down. He said with a smile, "I'm not telling you to go out and raid white people. I'm telling you to fight spiritually." In 2006, Nelson Mandela was interviewed, and he spoke about a spiritual principle that guided his life, and it has guided the life of so many others, heroes of this movement against apartheid, like Archbishop Desmond Tutu. It is the principle from South African society called Ubuntu. Could we say that together? Ubuntu. The way it was taught to me in South Africa, Ubuntu means I am because you are. We are together or we are not. But Nelson Mandela said more about Ubuntu. He said it meant respect, and it meant standing with others. That is, recognizing them as human. And the actual root of the word Ubuntu simply means this. It simply means humanity. Desmond Tutu told me that until the world stood with South Africa through means like divestment, their struggle would never have reached its fruitful conclusion. As long as they struggled alone, they would never have succeeded. When the world stood with them in solidarity, the principle of Ubuntu, no one stands alone, then success was assured. In this way, through the spirit of Ubuntu, Nelson Mandela overcame the spiritual forces of evil that had infected his country and continued to infect the world. I offer you a blessing. It comes from beyond me. It comes from centuries and millennia ago. It is not owned by the Episcopal Church or the Christian faith. Go forth into the world in peace. Be of good courage. Hold fast to that which is good. Render to no one evil for evil. Strengthen the faint-hearted. Support the weak. Comfort the afflicted. Be patient with everyone, but make no peace with oppression. Love and serve all that is holy. And may the blessing of the divine, the source of all that is, the reconciler of all that is divided, and the sustainer of all life be with you evermore. Amen.
Bishop, your reference to Nelson Mandela's comment about how the strength of the people of the world was utilized to help him succeed in freeing his nation of that evil. That spirit actually started in the state of California. Senator Mark Leno will now share with you how San Francisco, the University of California, in the state of California, played a leading role in being the initiator of the divestment movement from South Africa, Senator Mark Leno.
Good morning, everyone. It is a great privilege and very humbling opportunity to be able to address you today. Nelson Mandela, of course, transcended one of the most severe human dignities, harsh imprisonment for the crime of being who he was, for being a man who believed in the dignity of all and the fair treatment of all, and for having dark skin. That was his crime. But he chose, as we've heard, to forgive, and he chose the path of peace when he could have chosen the path of war. And he knew in his heart that only love conquers hate. I have personally experienced the dividends that have been paid as a result of his teachings and his mentorship. Our good friend Alice Huffman, who drove down early this morning from Sacramento to share her thoughts, is one of his disciples. When I first introduced the nation's first marriage equality bills in the California State Legislature back in 2005, hard to imagine from our perspective today, it was a very controversial bill. Alice Huffman, leader of the California NAACP, was there front and center unequivocally, and she took a lot of heat for that, but she stood by us as we made our case for equal rights for all Californians. Thank you, Alice Huffman. And I remember her pixie smile charming my colleagues in the Judiciary Committee when they challenged her, "Why are you here representing the Western Conference of the NAACP?" And she looked them straight back and said, "Our mission is to fight for civil rights. Equal marriage rights are civil rights." So I want to extrapolate on some of the history that Alice shared with us a little earlier. Yes, Maxine Waters, working with Willie Brown in the State Assembly at that time, led California to divest its billions of dollars of investment in South Africa. But prior to that, it was Governor George Duke Majan, with his seat on the Board of Regents at the University of California, who led the University of California to first divest its funds in South Africa. And whereas we see yesterday some very unfortunate partisan comments as a result of Barack Obama living the spirit of Nelson Mandela when he shook the hand of Raul Castro on a public stage, George Duke Majan stepped outside of his partisan lines and led the way here in California. So from the University of California to the state legislature in the state of California, here to the city and county of San Francisco, it was our Board of Supervisors, the first local legislative body in the country, led by Cecil, thank you for reminding us of Harvey Milk. Harvey Milk's successor on the Board of Supervisors, Harry Britt, led the charge for San Francisco to divest its investments in South Africa. So from University of California, the state of California, the city and county of San Francisco, we led the way in divesting significant amounts of money, which the rest of the world followed in turning the tide in South Africa, and I think we should take some pride in that. Dr. King once said that power without love is reckless and abusive, and that love without power is sentimental and anemic, but that power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice. That was Nelson Mandela, and that is the memory of Nelson Mandela. Power at its best, love implementing the demands of justice. Thank you for being here this morning.
These events do not happen just by accident. It was the Mayor's Chief of Staff, Steve Carver, and Naomi Kelly, that had Matthew and Martha come together and begin the process that caused us all to be here. They made sure that members of the school board and others would also be a part of this, and they made you, the citizens of San Francisco, a part of this. And Mayor Lee, I must tell you that your staff did really well. The steady guiding hand of your chief of protocol produced what I think is an appropriate celebration of Nelson Mandela's life. The number of persons from various countries in Africa who are part of our city government, Mohammed Nuru, and others, Toit Moses and others, and those who have been previously part of city government, Kofi Bonner and others, are all here celebrating. But in addition thereto, Mayor Lee, you see from this perspective the incredible diversity that is San Francisco. And when you can have an event in which Rose doesn't get a chance to say anything, it's a good day for the city and county of San Francisco. And so on behalf of Mayor Ed Lee and that hearty band of persons who put this morning service together, and some of you say, why morning? Well, Nelson Mandela operated at the earliest moment on a daily basis in the quest of ridding the world of inequality and establishing peace. And Mayor Lee's staff thought it very appropriate to start this day, post the celebration in South Africa, in San Francisco in the early morning. Most people would say noon, afternoon, but as is typically the case of San Francisco, we do it in memory and honor in the way in which the person who's being honored would have wanted us to do it. Thank all of you for coming. Don't forget to affix your signature to the condolence book so that the family will know that we are, in fact, a part of their family. Thank you for coming.